Today, we're going to piece together a really strange and fascinating story using just the 1884 travel diary of a 19th century explorer named Émile Duval. It's a wild ride into a moment of pure, manic obsession on the coast of Brittany. So let's just jump right in, smack in the middle of the action. Our explorer, Émile Duval, is in this state of absolute ecstasy. He's just shouted these words into the wind, clutching a photograph, his heart just hammering in his chest with what he is completely convinced his destiny. Okay, so what just happened? Well, literally moments before this, he made a sudden, almost panicked move. He'd pressed a few coins into a servant's hand, lunged for a photograph on a mantelpiece, and just ran, clutching it like it was the most precious thing in the world. And you can just picture it, right? His escape is urgent, frantic. He's fleeing through this beautiful garden, his footsteps just echoing as he scrambles down these stone terraces toward the sea, completely driven by this overwhelming surge of emotion. As he's running, his diary entry is just wild. He describes the garden blurring into this swirl of color and sound. He says the flowers seemed to be nodding at him, like they approved, and the trees were whispering encouragement. He was in a state of pure euphoria, a divine hallucination, as he'd later call it.
So yeah, this is our central mystery. What on earth could have possibly happened inside that house to make someone react like this? To figure it out, we've got to rewind. Let's go back a few hours and piece together the clues from his own journal from earlier that very same day.
All right, let's get into it. Our story really kicks off on the morning of May 15th, 1884. Duval is just taking a quiet, solitary walk through the beautiful landscape of Brittany, and he has absolutely no idea what's waiting for him. Duval paints this absolutely perfect picture of his morning. He left at dawn, walking this path wedged between fields of wheat and the Atlantic Ocean. You can almost smell it, right? That mix of salt from the sea and the crops. He even stops to watch 5 fishing boats full of pilgrims hearing their hymns drift over the water. It's this incredibly romantic, peaceful scene, the perfect fuel for his daydreams.
And then, bam! He rounds a bend, and his eyes just lock onto something that completely captivates him. It's this single white house perched on these 3 terraces that go right down to a secluded beach. For a lone wanderer like Duval, its isolation is like a magnet. As he gets closer, he sees the one thing that changes everything, a sign that says "À vendre," for sale. And his diary entry here is so important. He says the sign sparked an inexplicable elation in him. Now, he doesn't have a lot of money, but that doesn't matter. He feels like this is a personal invitation, just for him. The house is no longer just a house. It's a possibility. It's a dream.
So he's totally compelled by this feeling, right? He walks up to the property, rings the bell, and he's met by a servant. And this is where his lovely scenic walk turns into a full-blown personal drama.
He walks inside the salon, and his eyes are just drawn. Not to the furniture, not to the view, but to a big photograph sitting on the mantelpiece. It's a portrait of a woman with, as he puts it, luminous eyes and an enigmatic smile. He feels this instant, almost spooky connection, like he's known her his entire life, maybe from a dream?
So of course he has to ask the servant about the woman in the picture and about the house. The servant's name is Césarine, and she starts to slowly lay out the whole story of the people who lived there. You've got her master, Monsieur Tournel, who's now off in Paris, totally heartbroken. You've got Madame, the beautiful singer in the photo who just disappeared. And then there's Césarine herself, the keeper of this whole sad story.
Césarine explains how this dream home fell apart so quickly. Just last year, Tournel met Madame, this captivating singer from Italy, and was completely head over heels. He bought this house for her, this perfect little haven, and for a while, life was idyllic. But it seems the solitude got to Madame. One morning, she was just gone, vanished, without a word. Tournel was so shattered he fled to Paris and put the house up for sale.
And the asking price? 20,000 francs. Césarine even makes a point to tell him this was the exact price Tournel paid to make Madame happy. So it's not just a number. It's the cost of a man's devotion, the price tag on a dream that completely collapsed.
Okay, and here it is. This is the crucial moment. Because as Duval is hearing this tragic story of heartbreak, his mind interprets it in a completely different and, well, frankly, a completely delusional way. This slide just lays it out so perfectly. On the left, you've got reality, a sad, simple story of a woman who got tired of a quiet life and left her lover. But in Duval's mind? Oh no. On the right, this is a triumphant story of fate.
He believes Madame didn't just leave, she fled her confinement because destiny was clearing a path for his arrival. The house isn't a tomb of a dead relationship, it's a sanctuary waiting for them.
Duval uses this fascinating phrase in his diary to describe his reaction, an unseemly elation. Think about that. Any normal person would feel some sympathy for the guy who got abandoned, right? Not Duval. He feels pure, unadulterated joy. To him, Madame's disappearance just means one thing. She's free. She's out there, waiting for him to find her.
And this brings us right back to where we started. He's so overwhelmed by this revelation that he just acts. He presses money into the poor, stunned servant's hand. He snatches the photograph that has completely mesmerized him. And he bolts from the house, running through the gardens, absolutely convinced he is running towards his destiny.
But the story doesn't end in that euphoric sprint. We have one last journal entry, written several months later, in October. The fever of that day has broken, and Duval is now writing with the kind of clarity that only time and distance can give you. He's back in the busy, noisy reality of Paris, a world away from the romantic Britain coast, and his perspective has totally sobered up. That intoxicating feeling of destiny, the absolute certainty that he and Madame were meant to be, it's all just evaporated. He can now look back on it all, not as someone in the middle of it, but almost like a philosopher.
He writes this incredibly poignant line in his diary, fully acknowledging what really happened. He calls it an era of divine hallucination. He recognizes that his grand, romantic vision was a fleeting illusion, a beautiful fantasy cooked up by his young, wandering soul.
He comes to this final, profound conclusion. He accepts the house will belong to someone else. He accepts that the woman in the photograph was just a phantom, a screen for him to project all his desires onto. And he realizes the incredible joy he felt wasn't about the possibility of owning the house or possessing the woman. The true contentment, he writes, was in the chase itself, in the beautiful, powerful feeling of the illusion.
So Duval's strange, obsessive day on the coast leaves us with this question. He ultimately found more meaning in the powerful feeling of a dream than in the mundane reality of ever achieving it. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Is the chase always better than the catch? A fascinating thought to pull from an explorer's forgotten diary.